Jumpin In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. And here we are once again. Christmas is nearly upon us. Could be a Christmas show very shortly, or Christmas party in any case. For now, though, it is Jumping In into December, the best in modern and contemporary jazz with myself, H.
And me, Chris. Yes, welcome along to this week's show. And can you believe it? It's only 20 sleeps to the big day. London Jazz Festival was fantastic, and we'll tell you all about that in 26 sometime. But for now, we still have lots of releases to cram in before year end. So, H, what's been behind the doors of your jazz vent calendar this week? Anything new to report, or just some of the usual merry gentlemen and ladies? God bless them.
All sorts of good stuff knocking around, isn't there? And we'll no doubt be looking at some of our favourites of the year in just a few weeks' time. For now, I was reminded the other day of a celebration of almost exactly this time of year, 1965, a classic Ornette Coleman album in Stockholm. We are going to ride into the sun with Brad Meldo. I thought we could do a bit of sunshine at this time of the year. And a friend of the show, Paul Tier, who often chats in, was talking about all-female groups. Well, I thought I may as well play one. Why not? There's plenty to get out there.
And from me, well, if we find they don't go together, we are shaken from our slumber. We check the clocks. Before all that, let's start the ball rolling with Big Apple Part 1 of the City Suite from the Rin Seo Collective. Yeah, you could see where that was going, couldn't you? Big Apple, the opening section of City Suite from the Rin Seo collective. Even if you didn't know the title, there's a fair chance that you might have jumped for New York as the inspiration behind City Suite. The debut recording from Korean composer Rin Seo. She moved to New York to study jazz performance and composition at the prestigious Berklee College of Music, and the album is the first from her 14-piece collective, and very fine it is too. Seo's descriptive writing perfectly conjures up the sights and sounds and temper of the city as she uses the full breadth of her 14-piece collective to conjure up the vibrant musical landscape. Movement 1, she says, portrays a city that is vibrant, dynamic, fast-paced and full of ambition. And we heard great solos there from pianist Adam Birnbaum, alto sax player Steve Wilson, drummer Jared Schoening, whose terrific Two Takes album I featured a couple of years ago, whilst deftly also incorporating the only 4-piece string section, but they make themselves felt. And City Suite is available now from the Cellar Music Group, and it also features Ingrid Jensen, who we've had on the show a number of times on trumpet.
Very fine too, most enjoyable. I'm going to take you back a wee bit because I spotted something the other day. As things do, don't you? Well, the old algorithms, wherever you're looking on social media, something starts showing you things you're interested in. Up popped the other day was 60 years to the day since Ornette Coleman took his trio to the Golden Circle in Stockholm and recorded, well, exactly that, Ornette Coleman Trio at the Golden Circle, Stockholm. 2 albums that originally came out on Blue Note, now actually have been re-released fairly recently by Hat Hut Records, and in their sort of revisited series, which tends to remaster the original recordings and leave them pretty much as they were. So the idea is they always say, well, put it on, leave it play, turn the lights down, and you're in the club, so you get a bit of a chat in between, and you get it's not been edited, in other words, to sort of fit into the LP format, as it were. This, as you said, is from indeed December, just yesterday, December the 4th, 1965. Been a barren old time for a while for Ornette Coleman, and that is great quartet, the ones that he'd done when they sort of playing on the Atlantic Records, had disbanded somewhat for various reasons, and he'd sort of formed a quartet which then became a trio with his old Fort Worth High School drummer Charles Moffat on drums and the classically trained bassist David Eisenzon on bass, because Charlie Hayden, who'd been playing and was having some personal difficulties in his life and he'd moved to California. But they got together, this trio, and cut these 2 albums on Blue Note, which became all-time classics. Let's have a listen to the opening track, or some of it in any case. They're very long, a lot of the tracks. This one's called Faces and Places. And on they go, like I said, being a live album. Of course, the tracks are very long, 12, 13, 14 minutes, some of them, and great stuff on one album now on the re-release on Hat Hut Records, Ornette Coleman Trio at the Golden Circle, Stockholm Revisited. 2 albums originally, of course, on the original Blue Notes. If you have them kicking around, they both sound very good indeed, depending whether you like all in one or, broken up a little bit, or you like it edited, as it were. Ornette Coleman, alto sax, trumpet and violin on this album. All very controversial, his violin playing. Could he play? Was he just made up? Was he just banging the sort of totally inept? Depends who you speak to. David Isaacson definitely knew how to play the double bass. Charles Moffat again, sort of, you really get the impression that the cymbals are quite close might there. Well, wonderful stuff and very evocative. Like I said, put it on in the dark room. You could be in the club 60 years ago, almost to the day. And if you understand now, the first time I heard Ornette Coleman, I was almost terrified of him, thinking, oh my lord, what on earth is this all about? And the harmonics and this whole idea, which was basically, in essence, sort of getting rid of a tonal bass and allowing freedom to all the instruments and improvising over the melodic line, which ended up with something which was very free, which is the way he played. It's amazing how with time it becomes far more accessible on the ear. Or maybe that's just me getting old.
Yeah, I think the same could be said of most of Hat Hut's releases, which they tend towards the free end of the spectrum, and yet going back and listening to albums from 20 years ago that were pretty inaccessible to me at that time sound almost straight ahead today. Next for me, another trumpeter who we've been following for a number of years is the Russian-born Alex Sipayagan, and whilst he might be in a slightly more mellow mood on Reverberations, his 14th release as leader on the Criss Cross label, it finds him in the familiar company of old friends. Following on from lockdown, Sipayagan and his wife decided to relocate from New York to Sandrigo, a village in the northern Italian region of Vicenza. And prior to recording in a nearby studio, Alex booked a 6-concert tour in November last year to work on the material. I always try to create a story, he says. For me, the pieces are totally connected, even if they don't sound that way. A standard could connect with some free composition or a complicated odd meter. It's a very logical line from the beginning until the end. Well, is it? Here's Mismatch. Mismatch from Alex Sapaigan latest release, Reverberations. The band features a top selection of A-listers, really. Will Vinson on sax, John Screet on piano, and Fender Rhodes, both friends over many releases, as indeed is Donald Edwards on the drums and Michael Novelar on the bass. Haunting and atmospheric wordless vocals from Aubrey Johnson, who only appears on the one track, but I think most effectively. And of course, Alex Sapaigan on the trumpet.
Indeed, very fine. You never go wrong with an Alex Sapaigan album, and Lord knows how many he has out under his name. Dozens. He's incredibly prolific and also works as a sideman as well, of course. You're listening to Jumpin' In, best in modern and contemporary jazz with Chris and myself, H. And yes, our Jazz Christmas party, 2 weeks today. The usual thing, there will be hula hoops, there will be satsumas, there will be a small glass of sherry each, and some festive numbers, some oldies and maybe some newies as well.
And some mince pies.
Yeah, some mince pies. But there will definitely be a bit of Bing, I think. And yeah,
sausage rolls.
You got to have a bit of Bing. I don't know about the sausage rolls. I have to play by ear. So it depends whether I can sweet talk my better half or not. Okay, we can do the bit of sunshine. Certainly, because the last few days, my lord, it's been today. Oh my lordy, what was going on? It was just sort of. It was like you were living in black and white, I thought, when you look out the window. There was seemingly no colour. It was just either grey or sort of black or sort of grey-white. That was it. No other visible colours amidst the wind and the rain and God knows what else. So I thought we could ride into the sun. Brad Meldau's latest, which came out earlier this year. The songs inspired by Elliott Smith. A songbook entirely, well, not entirely of music, some of his own ones in there, but the late singer, songwriter and guitarist Elliott Smith came out on Nonsuch earlier on, and Brad sort of says he always enjoys his music. He complimented it, he said, with 4 of his own compositions inspired by and reflecting on Smith's oeuvre as well. And he also talks about how he first got to know Smith and his music when he was a regular part of his repertoire for years. After living in New York, he moved to Los Angeles. That's Brad. And he said there was a great scene of singer-songwriters congregating at a club called Largo. And if you're a regular Brad Meldau listener or collector, you'll recognise that was one of his earlier, very good albums as well, slightly experimental, called Largo. Yeah, Ride Into the Sun then, Brad Meldau, and from the album we are going to hear the track which he calls Between the Bars. Now they are, you're left hanging there between the bars perhaps. Brad Meldau on piano, Felix Mushum on acoustic bass, Matt Chamberlain on a bit of tasteful brushwork and drumming there as well from Brad's latest Ride Into the Sun on Nonsuch, the music inspired and songs performed by Elliott Smith. He's sort of homage to the music of Elliott Smith, the guitar player and composer who he very much liked in the California back in the day. No longer with us, Elliott, and I was pretty restrained actually going for that one. I could have gone. There's vocals on this album as well. I'm not always been a great fan of the vocals, but you've got they are vocals. Crops up Chris Teal, I think, plays mandolin and some vocals work as well. Brad sometimes sings a bit himself, I think, here and there. And then there's, on some tracks there's guitar, there's Ellen de Pasquale on violin, and there's also an orchestra on one or two tracks. So maybe I was a bit reserved on playing a piano trio, but it just sounded I was in the mood for that. It sounded quite nice after the last one. But yeah, it's worth checking out one, particularly at this time of the year if you want to see a bit of sun. Ride Into the Sun with Brad Meldau.
Next up from me now, a fascinating release from cornet player and composer Tobias Wickland. Fascinating not least for Wickland's instrument of choice, the cornet, once a favourite of jazz players in the days of old, much less familiar sight or choice today. And the music itself, which freely mixes passages of hypnotic minimalism, spirited ensemble playing and heartfelt blues, and Tobias playing with a Milesish mutist horn. Here's the opener of the album, Awakening. Very haunting indeed. Awakening, the opener from Inner Flight Music, the recent release from Swedish cornetist Tobias Wiklund. Wiklund, a major name on the Nordic scene with lots of releases to his name. And the album, an enthralling mix of styles, with minimalism on that track to blues, two neoclassical pieces with the Swedish Wind Orchestra, and the Middle Eastern feel and romping freedom of the title track. There is plenty to explore here. Aside from the aforementioned Wind Orchestra, the core band is a sextet comprising Hannah Plolsberg on tenor, Niels Berg on bass clarinet, John Graydon on piano, Kansan Zetterberg on bass, and John Feit at the drums. Inner Flight Music is out now on the Stunt label.
Very fine. We had a communication recently from a friend of the show and regular listener, Paul Tier. Hello to you, Paul, who sent a Substack link. Thanks for that. Yeah, found this on Sub Jazz. He says all about piano jazz albums, virtually all males. Got me thinking, plenty of female singers in jazz, but until fairly recently, female musicians were in minority in jazz. Well, yeah, I think you're probably right there. I can't think of one all-female jazz band. Can you? If you can, how about you play a track or two? Yeah, I can. Here's one. There we go. Artemis. That is, Paul, an all-female group. And you're right, there's not dozens of them around. There are a few, a handful of them, and obviously lots of, there's far more female soloists now, be a pianist or something like Hiromi we were featuring the other week, or Connie Han again on piano, fantastic young female pianists, and really... And they're firebrands, a pair of them, I must admit, amazing playing. But you're right, all female groups are not that common in jazz, but they do exist. Artemis itself, I think they're on their third album. Arboresque, I think, came out earlier in the year on Blue Note, and probably their best, to my mind. This was actually, I think, the second one in real time. And the lineup has changed. The first one started, I think it had Melissa Aldana on tenor sax, and there was about sort of 6 of them or 7 of them. So in this particular album we just heard, or the track we just heard there, Slink, which you might recognise as Lyle May's track, had basically, I think, the woman who really is the sort of linchpin of it, Renier Rosnes on the piano, and then Ingrid Jensen on trumpet, Nicole Glover on tenor sax, Alexa Tarantino on flute, Narika Ueda bass, and Alison Miller, who thinks a constant, on drums. I think there's just a quartet or a quintet, I think, on the latest album. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I think, yeah, Alison Miller's still there, and Ingrid Jensen. But Melissa Aldana doing a lot again under her own name, but not in an all-female band. But definitely worth checking out if you want to fancy looking at that, Paul. Well worth the 3 on Blue Note there. And there are at least one other we were thinking of all-female groups around that exist as well, which I think we featured on the programme once before. But you are right in saying that whilst there's lots of women in jazz now, all-female groups, you might have to struggle a bit harder to find.
Indeed. Yes, there's a Polish group who we've got a new release from. We might pop that in the new year sometime. Well, that's just about it for this week's show. We will be back in a couple of weeks for our Christmas party special. Coming faster than you think, isn't it? So I hope you're all getting everything ready. Before we go, just time for a track from the 25-year-old pianist and composer Jahari Stampley, who I admit was a new name to me on his sophomore album, What a Time. He's a recent winner of the Bosendorfer piano competition and also the Herbie Hancock competition. He doesn't confine himself exclusively to one style of music in presenting his music. There's classical influences, gospel tracks, hip-hop tracks, and R&B influences that weave their way in and around the jazz music, and half the tracks on the album are vocals, which to me might be better suited to their own releases rather than putting them all together on a jazz album. However, he can certainly play, just needs to decide on a direction. Here's the title track, What a Time. More in this vein, please.
See you in a couple of weeks with party hats on in 2 weeks.
Ho, ho, bye for now.